Good morning, good Chodesh, Chodesh Elul, Haba Leila Tova. We're now on the home stretch before Rosh Hashanah. 30 days to go, 29 if you're counting. Baruch Hashem, we are there, wrapping up a new year. We're wrapping up the old year, starting a new year in about a month. One, Baruch Hashem for the opportunity. It's Elul. Okay, today we are learning the fourth Perek of Eduyos. Today's shir is the Ilay Nishmas Aranachim and Simcha Kohen Menes Hashem have an Aliyah, and for Shalema for Yisrael Baruch Aliyah Racha Bas Pasal Zota Racha Aliyana Bas Yar Bracha Av Yisrael Berisha Chai Bas Tababela for Shlev Basel Shar Chal Yisrael Shefer Bracha Basacha V'Tzvin Rach Bon Bracha Rachalea for all his endeavors, and Azir Bekaro for Shmuel David Ben Miriam and Tzvi Ben Chana. Here we go. As we know throughout Shas, most of the time when you have a machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai is the more stricter position, Beis Hillel is the more lenient, and in this day and age we paskin according to Beis Hillel. Elas Klavo, after Mashiach comes, there are opinions that say that we're going to be pasking like Beis Shammai. So when Mashiach comes, get ready to light your menorah from 8 to 1 instead of 1 to 8. Chanukah. Anywho, so now we're gonna this Perek is gonna talk about the next two paragrams today, Perek Dalet, and on Sunday Perek Hey, are gonna talk about the cases where the opposite is true, where Beis Shammai is more lenient and Beis Hillel is more machmir. So Perek Dalet Mishnah Elu Devarim Mekuli Beis Shammai Umechumri Beis Hillel. These disputes and these matters are ones in which the lenient rulings are from Beis Shammai and the stricter rulings are from Beis Hillel. This is also we learned this Mishnah back in Maseches Beitza, Perek Aleph. Beitza Shalot de B'Yantif sounds familiar. That's the opening Mishnah and Beitza Shalot de B'Yantif. The egg was laid on Yantif that fell on a Sunday. Beis Shammai Amin Tochel Teochel. Beis Shammai says it can be eaten that day, even though the egg became complete the day before, which was on Shabbos. Beis Hillel Amin Lo Seochel. Beis Hillel says you cannot be eaten that day because it was prepared for Yantif on Shabbos. And you're not allowed to prepare on Shabbos for Yantif. If Yantif is on Sunday, you cannot prepare on Shabbos for Yantif. You could make an Erev Tashilin and prepare on a Thursday, Friday Yantif for the coming Shabbos, but you cannot do it. There's no such thing as an Erev Tashilin to prepare on Shabbos for Yantif. It's Hachana. Beis Shammai says Seor Bechazayis, the smallest amount of sourdough that the Torah asks a person to own on Pesach is the size of an olive. The chometz b'kikoseves, and the smallest amount of chometz that the Torah asks a person to own on Pesach is the size of a date, which is larger than that of an olive. Beis Hillel says, they say both of them, both the sourdough and the chametz that the Torah asks the person to eat on Pesach is both the size of an olive. It's more machmir than Beis Shammai. Okay, moving on. Mishnah Beis. Behema shenot b'yantif. If an animal was born on a yantif that fell on a Sunday, right? So this year Rosh Hashanah, let's say Sukkot. Rosh Hashanah is Yom HaRichter. They don't count that. Let's say Sukkot. This year is Shabbos Sunday. Shabbos is D'Oraisa and D'Rabbanan. Chutz La'aretz we call it on Sunday. So if an animal was born on the second day, Sukkot this year, or on Simchas Torah, we're both on Sundays this coming season. Hakol Modim Shehi Muteres. Everyone agrees that it's permitted to be eaten that day. Even Beis Hillel, who asters a newly laid egg, they permit a newly born animal. That's because the egg was prepared the day before, when it was on Shabbos, the animal was not. The animal was in the womb for several months. Therefore, if Yom Tov falls on a Sunday, then the newly born animal can be eaten that day since it was not prepared for Yom Tov on Shabbos. An egg only takes 1 day to develop. An animal there's a pregnancy going on for several months, and it wasn't just created the day before. And if a chick hatched from an egg on Yom Tov, everyone agrees that it is usher to be eaten. Even Beis Shammai, who allows a newly laid egg, asers a newly hatched chick. This is because a newly hatched chick is considered a creeping creature, which the Torah asers for consumption. Okay, the next machlokes we're talking, which was also in Beitza, is referring to kisui adam, which is covering the blood of a shechted animal, particularly a deer or a bird. We've done this a lot in Daf Yom in the past few prakim, kisui adam, that you need it for that a behemoth, that a cow or a sheep does not get kisui adam, but a deer and birds get kisui adam. But if you want to shecht on Yom Tov, so if you want to shecht a bird on Yom Tov, then you need to have like dirt available to do kisui adam. But you can't dig up any dirt because that's a malacha of digging and grinding. So, and also moving the dirt that's prepared before Yom Tov is also enes or muksa. So then, so we're going to talk about now how this is done. So, this is hashochet l'chaya of Yom Tov. If someone wants to shecht a non-domestic animal, meaning a deer or a bird on Yom Tov, but does not have any earth prepared to do kisui adam, Beis Shammai says, Yachpor b'deka v'yichase. He may shecht the animal, dig up some earth with a shovel, and use it to cover the blood. However, this is only permitted if the earth is loose and the shovel was inserted into the ground before Yom Tov. Since the earth is loose, then removing it from the ground does not create a permanent hole, so that's not considered to be plowing according to the Torah. Since the shovel is already in the ground, it's not plowing, even according to the Derabbanans. The fact that the earth is loose also eliminates the issur of grinding, because there is no need to grind loose earth. Finally, the earth is not muksa because the insertion of the shovel into the ground for Yom Tov prepared it. So if you think you're going to shecht on Yom Tov, then you just, according to the Mishnah, we don't pass the shadows over here, but according to the Mishnah, you stick a shovel in the ground and loosen up the ground, and you'll take care of it on Yom Tov. Beis Hillel says, Lo yishchat ela imkein hayelo afen muchan. He may not shecht the animal unless he has earth completely prepared from the previous day. It does not suffice to have loose earth into which a shovel is inserted, because clods of earth that require grinding might still come up. Rather, the earth must be completely prepared beforehand, dug up, crumbled, and designated. However, Beis Hillel agreed that if he broke the law and shechted an animal on Yom Tov without having prepared earth, he may dig up earth with a shovel and use it to cover the blood. He may use soft earth into which a shovel had already been inserted before Yom Tov. That way you're covering yourself on both angles. Moving on. If ash is left in a stove before Yom Tov, a person may shecht a deer, a non-domestic animal, a chaya, or bird on Yom Tov, and use the ashes to cover the blood, because the ashes of a stove are considered prepared. Does not have to be dirt from the ground; it can even be ashes. The owner has in mind before Yom Tov to use the ashes for whatever he needs on Yom Tov. Therefore, they are not muksa and may be used to do kisui adam, even though they were not set aside specifically for that purpose. Okay, Mishnah Gimel. Talk about Hefker over here. This Mishnah is also from Peah. We learned this last year when we first started this. Beis Shammai says, Hefker le'aniyim hefker. If a person declares his produce ownerless in regards to the poor, it becomes ownerless. Now, I'm not really sure why Mishnah uses the word hefker with a vase as opposed to the word hefker with a pay. They both mean ownerless. I was not able to find the answer to that. So if an owner of the produce says that the import person can come and take it, but the rich person cannot, then his statement is effective, and the property becomes ownerless for the poor. Such produce is subject to the same laws that apply to produce that was declared completely hefker, except that it can be acquired only by a poor person. Like regular hefker is pater from trumas, maisus, lekes, shicha, and peya. That's made hefker. It's hefker. You don't own it. Therefore, you don't have to take all those matanas off. Beisila says, "Eno hefker ad sheyufkar." Does not become ownerless at all unless he declares it totally ownerless for the rich too, as is the case with Shemitah. Because that Shemitah, the Torah says that all the fields become hefker, and anyone can come and take. And if someone declares his produce only ownerless to the poor, then his declaration is meaningless. And as such, no one can take it, and it's still chayiv the chiyuvim of shumas, mashas, lekes, shicha, and peya. Okay. Next we're going to talk about shicha. Kol amari hasadem shel kav. If all the bundles in the field are each the size of one kav, ve'echad shel arba kavim, and one is the size of 4 kavs, b'shachacho, and he forgot the 4 kav bundle. Beis Shammai says, Eino shicha, it is not shicha, and it may be retrieved by the owner. Since the bundle is 4 times larger than the others, the owner will eventually remember it and is not classified as shicha. Beis Hillel says, shicha, it is shicha, it must be left for the poor. Although it is much larger than all the other bundles in the field, the owner will not necessarily remember it. Mishnah Daled. Mishnah Daled. Where are we here? Okay. I'll put that there. Fine. This is also a chazara and a Mishnah and Peah. Omer shehu samach legafav legadish lebakar lekelim. The bundle of grain was left near a wall or a stack of grain or cattle or plowing tools. V'shechacho, and he forgot it. Beis Shammai says, "Eno shicha." It is not shicha. It may be retrieved since it was left near an important item. So there's one of these. It is not shicha because the owner will eventually remember it. Beis Hillel says, "Shicha, it is shicha and must be left for the poor because they hold that it will not necessarily be remembered." Okay, now we're gonna go. We've had this next Mishnah twice already. We had it once in Peah and once in Masha Sheni. We're talking about the Revai, which is the 4th year fruits, where the first 3 years of a tree's life is called Orla, and after the 4th year is Revai, which is similar to Masha Sheni, where it has to be brought up to Shalim and eaten it, and then the 5th year, the produce becomes his own. Okay, so this is Mishnah Hay. Kerem Revai, the 4th year produce of a vineyard, right, which is called Revai. Beis Shammai says, Ein lo chomesh, ein lo bir, is not subject to the law of the 5th or to the law of removal. So, by Masha Sheni, where are we here? Right. So by Ma'aser Sheni, you need to add on 1/5 when redeeming the Ma'aser Sheni, or by destroying it before Pesach of the fourth and seventh years. Those do not apply to Karen Revai. You don't have to do that. That's according to Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says yesh lo chomesh yesh lo beer. It is subject to the law of the fifth and to the beer, to lecha beer. That Beis Hillel says it applies between regular produce and also with the vineyard. Beis Shammai says yesh lo parrot yesh lo olilos, that the fourth year produce of a vineyard is chayiv to the laws of parrot and olos, just like the produce of any other year. And the poor who acquired the parrot or olos of the fourth year vineyard, they must redeem it for themselves if they do not want to take it to Yerushalayim. But Beis Hillel says, so the gas, all that goes to the wine press, the entire fourth year harvest, including the parrot and the olos, may be kept by the owner. He's allowed to put all the grapes into the wine press to turn them into wine without leaving any for the poor. He then redeems the wine or takes it to Yerushalayim. Mishnah Vav. Chavish shel zeisim megugolim. If someone has a barrel of olives pickling in salt, Beis Shammai says, he does not have to make a hole in the barrel to show that he wants to be rid of the liquid, because it is assumed that in any event that he does not want the liquid to be on the olives. Therefore, even if he does nothing, the liquid does not prepare the olives for tumah. Beis Hillel says, he does have to make a hole in the barrel, because he must actively show that he does not want the liquid to be there. If he takes no such action, we cannot assume that he is opposed to the liquid being on the olives, and therefore the olives are not prepared for tumah. However, Beis Hillel agree that if he did make a hole in the barrel, but sediment from the olives blocked the liquid from draining out, it is tahor. The olives cannot become tamei, since the owner made a hole and showed that therefore showed that he did not want the liquid. The olives are not prepared for tumah, even if the hole is blocked later. The next machlok is between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Hasach b'shemen tahor. Someone spread tahor oil on himself, nitma, and then became tummy and transmitted the tumah to the oil. Yar v'tavel, and then went down into a mikveh and immersed himself to purify himself from the tumah. Beis Shammai says, afal pi shehu benatif, even if he is dripping with oil after the tefillah and it was not absorbed into his skin, tahor. The oil is tahor because it is treated as part of his body, and therefore became tahor through the immersion of his body, regardless of how much oil there is on the person. It is tahor. Beis Hillel says, "Kedei sichas erekatan." If just a small amount of oil remains on him, they're enough to spread over a small limb, it is negligible in relation to his body. It is regarded as part of his body, and the immersion of the body works for the oil as well. If there's a greater amount of oil present, it is too important in its own right to be deemed part of his body, and therefore remains tamei despite the tefillah. Imhaya shemen tamei mitchiloso. And if the oil was tamei from the start, before he put it on himself, then the maximum amount of oil that can become tahor is much smaller. Beis Shammai says, "Kedei sichas erekatan." If after the tefillah, enough oil remains on his body to smear a small limb, meaning like the little pinky finger, it is treated as part of his body and is therefore purified by his tefillah. A larger amount, however, will remain tamei. Beis Hillel says, "Mashke tofeach." If the liquid on his body can moisten that which touches it, and the tefillah makes it tahor, but a larger amount remains tamei. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Beis Hillel. Okay, here it says in the Beis Hillel, Tofeach umatfiach. If the body is so moist, it is so moist with oil that a hand that touches it can then moisten something else, and the oil is tahor. Even this amount of oil is considered negligible in relation to the body and therefore purified by the tefillah. Mishnah Zion. Okay, now we're recording. We're going to talk about three machlokes where Beis Shammai is more lenient than Beis Hillel regarding to kiddushin and divorce, marriage than marriage and divorce. This was also in kiddushin. So there's a lot of chazar here today. This is Mishnah Zion. Ha'isha miskadeshes b'dina v'shavadina kediri Beis Shammai. That a woman can be betrothed with a dinar or something with a dinar according to the opinion of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says bepruta v'shar pruta. A woman can be betrothed even with a pruta, in the smallest coin, or something with a pruta. The kama pruta, and how much is a pruta worth? Achad mishmona be'isr etaki, 1/8 of an Italian isr, which was a silver coin. The next part of this was we already learned in Gittin. Beis Shammai says poter hu es ishto beget yashan. A man may divorce his wife with an old get. Beis Hillel oshim, Beis Hillel aseret. What's an old get? If you remember from Gittin, any get that he wrote for his wife and he then spent time alone with her before he gave it to her, that is a get yashin, and he cannot use it because he might have had be with her while they were alone, and then she would conceive and have a child, and people would assume that the get was given on the day that was written, and they're going to think that this child was a mamzer. Excuse me. Therefore, Beis Hillel required that they use a new get for the new date, so as to be clear that the child was conceived before they were divorced, and there's no issue with the child at all. Okay, the next part of the Mishnah comes also from Gittin. Hamagarish is ishta v'lana imo bepundiki. Someone divorced his wife. The witness is later said she spent the night alone with him in an inn. Beis Shammai says she does not need to get a second get from him, because we do not assume that he married her by having relations with her for the sake of kiddushin. He might have had relations, but it wasn't for kiddushin. And since the witnesses did not see them engaging with relations, we do not assume that they did. Beis Hillel says Beis Hillel says she needs a second get from him because we assume that he had relations with her, and therefore we assume that he was Makadesh her a second time, and witnesses can assume this is what happened, and therefore they would need to get a second get in order to divorce her. Amosai. So when does Beis Hillel say that she needs to get a get? Is mentioned as Garshim and Nisuin only when she would divorce him after they completed their marriage with Nisuin and were living together as man and wife. In this Garshim and Ha'eris and Amos we could get man and get Sheni. But if she was divorcing him during the Eris and during the betrothal stage, when the couple is not yet permitted to live together, the Beis Hillel agrees she does not need a second get because they were alone together. Just because they were alone together after the divorce. Because during the Eris stage of marriage, he is not yet comfortable with her and is embarrassed to be with her. Therefore, even Beis Hillel agree that we cannot assume that they had relations with each other just because they were alone together. Oh, excuse me. Okay, moving right along. Now the next machlokas Mishnah Ches appears in Yevamas. Bishamai Matir and Esasaras La'achim. Bishamai permit the co-wives of an erva to the brothers, meaning that if a brother can perform yibum with his erva's co-wife, therefore, even if she's the only living brother, she may not marry others without chalitza. So let's go a little bit over here. So we know the mitzvah of yibum, where a man marries a woman and he dies without having children, then she falls to yibum to one of his brothers. And either one of the brothers does yibum and marries her, or he does chalitza and she goes free. Now, technically, if the husband was still alive, then his brother's wife, then the deceased, if the deceased was still alive, and his brother would not be allowed to do anything with his wife because she'd be an erva. If they got divorced, he would not be allowed to marry his brother's wife. But because he died, if there's a mitzvah of yibum, now his unmarried brother can marry his wife because he just died, and that is a mitzvah. Once you do chalitza, then that gets disqualified. So Shammai, he matters the co-wives of the erva to the brothers, meaning that a brother may perform yibum with his erva's co-wife, even though he is the only living brother. She may not marry others without chalitza. Beis answers the co-wives to the brother. If he is the only living brother, they are free to marry others without chalitza. Chaltzu, if one of the co-wives of the erva performed chalitza with the living brother, Bishamai postim and akura. Bishamai consider this to be a meaningful chalitza and therefore disqualify that co-wife from marrying into the kahuna. And she just can marry a kohen. Beis Hillel machshirin. Beis Hillel considers to be meaningless chalitza since it was unnecessary, and therefore consider her eligible to marry a kohen. This yabnu, if one of the kohen is taken by the brother in yibum, and he then died, Beis Shammai consider her eligible to marry a kohen since his yibum was entirely permitted. Beis Hillel posted, but Beis Hillel disqualified her from marrying a kohen since the yibum was aser, and a woman who has been with a man whom she is aser is considered a zona and therefore forbidden to kohanim. She'elu posted ve'elu makshirin. Even though Beis Hillel disqualified certain people for marriage, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai consider them eligible for marriage. So families on each side of the machlokas included women that its own side considered matir, but the other ones considered aser. Lo nimnu Beis Shammai melisa nashim Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai did not refrain from marrying women of Beis Hillel. Below Beis Hillel melisa nashim Beis Shammai. Nor did Beis Hillel refrain from marrying women from Beis Shammai because they always told each other about women that the other side would consider aser, so that they would not marry them. V'chol taharos and despite all the tahar items, the tummy items that one side of a dispute considered tahar and the other side considered tamei, each side did not refrain from preparing tahar foods on utensils that they borrowed from each other, because each side would always inform the other regarding utensils that the borrower would consider tamei. Okay. Mishnah Tes is a chazara of Mishnah in Yevamos. Okay, so we know that Yibum is done through Bia, but the Chachamim said they instituted that the Yibum should first do a act of Kiddushin with her, and then he can have Bia with her. That's called Maimar. Not called Kiddushin, it's called Maimar. Once one brother performs Maimar with the Yavama, then none of the other brothers may marry her. The Tanaim disagree whether the Maimar has the full status of Kiddushin, whether it's something less. But it's still an enactment for the Rabbanan that they should have one step before they live together. So, Shlosha Achim, there are three brothers. Shnayim mehernos le'achayos. Two of them are married to two sisters. V'achad mefuna, and one was unmarried. And meis echa mibale achayos. The husband of one of the sisters died childless. V'asa ba mefuna maimer, and the unmarried brother performed maimer with her. Excuse me. V'achakach meis. And afterwards, his other brother died childless, and the halacha in this case is a machlokas. Beishamai says Ishto Ima, that the mimer wife of the unmarried brother remains with him. And the other widow goes out free to marry Achlitza on account of being his mimer wife's sister. Beishamai holds that mimer is a completely effective marriage. And once the unmarried brother performed Maimar with the first sister, she became his full wife. When the second sister lost her husband, she was an heir to him and was therefore freed. Beis Hillel says the Maimar is not completely effective as a marriage. The second sister, therefore, also has a even bond with him. Notice Ishto to get Chalitza. Excuse me. As a result, he must send out his mimer wife with both a get and chalitza. The get is to undo the mimer, and the chalitza is to undo the ibn bond. And he must send out his brother's wife, the second widow, with chalitza to remove the ibn bond with her. Beis Hillel holds that mimer is considered only a partial marriage, and therefore is not strong enough to prevent the second sister's even bond from taking effect as well. Since both sisters now have even bond with him, the halacha is that he may not marry either of them. Therefore, he must remove the even bond with both of them through chalitza. However, since the first sister is partially married to him through maimar, he must also give her a get to free her from this partial marriage. Zu hi sh'amnu is about this case that the Chacham said, I lo al ishto, woe to him over his wife, whom he must not divorce through no fault of his own. Ilo al Eshes Achiv, woe to him over his brother's wife, whom he may also not marry. Okay, Mishnah Yud. Getting a little tired here. It's okay. Hamadiris Ishto. This is in Ksubos. The whole Perek of Chazara today. Hamadiris Ishto mitashus amishta. If one makes a vow that prevents his wife from engaging in marital relations, Beis Shammai Amr Shtei Shabbosos, Beis Shammai says that the limit is 2 weeks. Beis Hillel Amr Shabbos Echas. Whereas Beis Hillel says the limit is 1 week. If the Shvua, if the Neder asks marital relations for less than the stated time, maybe 2 weeks according to Beis Shammai, 1 week according to Beis Hillel, the wife cannot demand a divorce, but if the length of the prohibition, the Isser exceeds the limit, she can demand a divorce and collect her ksuba. The next part of this Mishnah comes from Croesus, which do Croesus yet? I don't know if we did that yet. I think no, that's in Kutchum. I'm going to do that in a couple of months. So we're not there yet. We're going to do an intro to this now. Hamafeles the Orish Shmona Ve'echad. So miscarries during the night of the 81st day. Beis Shammai poaching in a korban. Beis Shammai rule that she is not obligated to bring a second set of korbanos. Even in this case, the korbanos for the first birth or miscarriage are valid for the second one as well. Since she miscarried before, it was possible for her to bring the korbanos, because korbanos are not brought at night, then the miscarriage is treated as though it occurred within the Torah period and does not require its own set of korbanos. So let's go back a second over here. We know that the Torah says that when a boy is born, the mother is tamei for 7 days, and the Torah period lasts for 33 days. And if the child was a girl, the Tameh period lasts for 14 days, and the Tahara process lasts for 66 days, a total of 80 days. And after that, she brings a Perek. So, in the case of a girl, where it lasts 66 days, it's a total of 80, 66 and 14 is 80, it is possible for one to conceive and miscarry a real fetus. It's not that possible for the 40-day mark. So if that happens, if she has a miscarriage during this time, then she does not have to bring a second set of karbanos. The karbanos brought for the first batch are valid for the second one as well. However, if the miscarriage took place after the Tahara period ended, then she needs to bring a new set of karbanos. That's what we're talking about over here. So now we're going on to Tzitzis, which question of Tzitzis. I am very tired. Oh boy. Okay, almost done. Sada b'tzitzis, regarding the question whether a linen cloak is chayiv in tzitzis, b'shamai potrim, b'shamai rule that it is pater from the mitzvah. It is also to attach the chelis to a linen garment. Since there's no such mitzvah, then the Isra Shatnez takes effect. According to Beis Shammai, the Chum decreed that the tzitzis may not be attached to a linen garment because they were concerned that someone might wear the garment at night when the mitzvah tzitzis does not apply and thereby violate the Isra Shatnez. So Beis Hillel rules that a linen cloak is chayiv in mitzvah tzitzis because they maintain that the Chacham made no such gezerah. The next part of the Mishnah comes from Maisrus. It's about tevel. Eating tevel is usher. You can't eat tevel. You have to take Trumas and Maisrus off the produce. But the produce does not have the status of tevel until the owner becomes obligated to take Meiser on it. So you can eat some of the produce as a snack, like while you're working in the field. And that's fine. Once you harvest it and bring it into the house, then it's chayiv in Trumas Meises. Kalkelas of Shabbos, a basket of fruit that one doesn't need to eat on Shabbos. Beishamai Pochim, Beishamai rule that it does not become subject to the Meiser until Shabbos begins. Only therefore eat it as a snack before Shabbos without separating Meiser. Beis Hillel rule that becomes chayiv to the chiyuv of Meiser as soon as it is designated, and even before Shabbos, it may not be eaten at all unless it is tithed. Unless it was Meiser first. Okay. The next Mishnah comes from Nazir. Nazir is someone who grows his hair, doesn't drink time in order to be a little bit more kaddish. It's usually a 30-day thing. This is Yiralah. Misha Nada in Naziris Meruba, someone who accepted the promise of a long term of Naziris, which is more than 30 days, while he was outside Eretz Yisrael. And he completed his term of Naziris there, and only afterwards came to Eretz Yisrael. So how many days must he observe again? Beis Shammai says Nazir Shloshim Yom, he must be a Nazir 30 days, since the tumah of the land of the nations, the tumah Sa'amim, is only a tumah derabanan, and he fulfilled his chiyuv d'oraisa when he observed his term of Naziris outside Eretz Yisrael. Nevertheless, the Chachamim penalized him by requiring him to be a Nazir again for a standard 30-day term. It is not necessary, however, to repeat the full length of his original term. Beis Hillel says, Nazir b'tchila, he must be a Nazir as at the beginning of his term. He must observe a term of Naziris in Eretz Yisrael for the length of time he originally vowed to observe. According to Beis Hillel, the Chachamim penalizes Nazir by treating him as if he did not observe his Naziris at all, since he observed it outside of Eretz Yisrael. The next part is also from Nazir. Misha Hayushtek Kite Edim Me'idus Oso. Someone has two sets of witnesses testifying about him. Edim Me'idim Shenada Shtaim. These this first set of witnesses testify that he accepted upon himself two terms in Nazirus. One standard term for 30 days, and two standard terms of 30 days or 60 days. And these, the second set of witnesses, testify that he accepted upon himself 5 terms in Nazirus, 150 days, and he claims that he did not vow at all. Beishamai says the edus is divided. Both edus are tossed out since the two sets of witnesses contradict each other, and the court has no way of knowing which is telling the truth. Therefore, there is no Nazirus obligation here. Beisilo says yesh b'chlal chamesh tayim. Included in the 5 terms is 2 terms of Nazirus, meaning that since all the witnesses agree that he accepted at least 2 terms of Nazirus, and the edus about 2 terms is considered valid. Nazir shtayim. Therefore, the halach is that he must be a nazir with 2 terms. And the next Mishnah, the last one for today, appears in Ohalos, which we did not do yet. That's coming up probably in February, around there, when we get to Taharis. Ohalos is about Tumas Ohel. If the roof is cut, about the roof over a human corpse, and about things becoming tamei, how it's transmitted. So let's do this Mishnah, and then we'll wrap it up. Adam should not stone takas a sedek. A person is lying under a crack in the roof. Beishamai says, he does not spread tumah. As he's lying on the ground without a tefach, a space between his body and the ground, he cannot act as an oel that bridges the gap between the 2 sections of the roof. Therefore, if a corpse is beneath one section of the roof, it does not transmit tumah to people or utensils beneath the other section. Beisila says, Adam chalalu, a person is hollow, there's a tefach between the front and back of his body. That's had an elyon, maybe it's a tumah. So the upper side of his body does spread tumah. Since the upper side of his body is a tefach above the ground, it can indeed act as an ohel that links the 2 sections of the roof and allow tumah to be transmitted from a corpse beneath one section to items beneath the other section. That is all for today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll continue on Sunday with Perek. Hey, have a wonderful Shabbos. Kol tov. A good Chodesh.